Hey, fellas, welcome to episode 6, The Dirt Seat. Today, we're going to be looking at a few cards and discussing the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame. Does this story sound familiar? It happened years ago. We were roommates and good friends, Mickey Vernon would recall, years later when talking about this player. After I was traded back to Washington, I got 4 hits off of him the first time I faced him, the last one knocking the glove off his hand. When I got to first base, he was steaming. He looked over and said, "Roommate or not, you've got to go into the dirt seat next time I see you." Sure enough, the next time I faced him, the first pitch was up and over my head to let me know he had not forgotten. Today, we're going to be looking at some cards and talking a little bit about Early Wynn. This is his 1950 Bowman card, and it just came in for me this week. Born on January 6th, 1920 in Alabama, he made his major league debut at 19 years old with the then Washington Senators. In 1944, Gus, as he was also called, led the league in losses. But this is just one of the few blemishes on an otherwise amazing career. From his stats, it looks like he really hit his stride after missing the 1945 season due to military service, serving in the United States Army. In 1948, after the war, he was traded to the Cleveland Indians. And in Cleveland, he was part of the greatest pitching rotation of all time, according to David Fleitz. If you don't know who David Fleitz is, he's a baseball historian, to include books on Shoeless Joe Jackson, Eddie Seacott, and others. So I love these cards. I love the old Bowman cards. And I always get these wrong. I always get the rotations wrong. But they're beautiful cards. In 1950, Early was actually diagnosed with gout, and he would play the rest of his career in quite a large amount of pain. And even with that said, people would say of him that he was one of the toughest pitchers they had ever faced. In fact, that quote is attributed to the great Ted Williams. Early Wynn would also say that a pitcher has to look at the hitter as his mortal enemy, and said he'd pitch, meaning he would, try to hit his grandmother even if she faced him. At one point when people asked him if he would always be this aggressive. In 1958, Early Wynn was traded to the Chicago White Sox, where he would continue to be an all-star in the 1958, 1959, and 1960 seasons. By 1961, which is what this card is, 1961, age was starting to catch up to good old Early. He was now pitching in his 41-year-old season, and time just catches up to all of us. My gray hairs speak to that as well. And so it's been a few more years there in Chicago, and then actually go back to Cleveland. And Early Wynn would finish his career. We'll just move that here. Let's see if we can get our Bowman back in the scene too. So Early Wynn would finish his career with 300 wins, 4,564 strikeouts, and an ERA of 3.54. I forgot what his WAR is, but he was pretty amazing. He was eventually inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. In 2013, the Bob Feller Act of Valor Award was honored to win as well, as one of the 37 Baseball Hall of Fame members for his service to the United States Army during the Second World War. So that's it for the cards, which are absolutely beautiful. A friend of mine had asked a few questions about Early Wynn on January 6th. I have his calendar up, or I have a calendar up that has baseball history. And on Early Wynn's birthday, a friend of mine who doesn't look a lot at sports but loves history asked who this Early Wynn guy was. I got a chance to talk a little bit more about him, and then made me want to pull out the cards and share them as well. But let's also talk about the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame ballot coming up, as well as another thing I want to share with you, and you guys can tell me what you think. All right. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the cards. Thanks for continuing to watch. Just a couple of things really quick. First, a lot's changed since the last time I logged in, which was just a few minutes ago, when I did the card video, put the kids to bed, looked at the news, and sure enough, we have a new Major League Hall of Fame member. So congratulations to Scott Rolen, who was famous with the Phillies and the Cards, and also played with the Cincinnati Reds for a while. So he got into the Hall of Fame today. He has a WAR of 70.1, which I think is probably going to be one of the key factors moving on for people who are going to get into the Hall of Fame. He had 316 home runs, over 2,000 hits, and an on-base percentage of .364, which is, over 33% of the time you're getting on base, so pretty good. But I think WAR is becoming a bigger number. Interested on what other people are thinking. I'm also kind of interested to see how that affects things moving forward. For instance, if you look at the past couple of years, who is affected most by having high WAR averages? I have a feeling you're going to see names like Mookie Betts on there, and Shohei Ohtani, Mike Trout. But how often are you going to see consistent high number of WAR for first basemen and right fielders? It's something I haven't, fully explored yet, but I do find it quite interesting. Okay, let's talk a little bit also about this YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame. So I'll point you to a couple of things here, and we'll look at, on the side screen as we go through this as well. But Huck Sports Card was a big help. Recommend checking out his channel as well. But he was able to kind of point me in the right directions. He also shows a lot of really great cards. But he pointed me to the side, and I'll point you to the guy's side as well. But it's basically the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame is something that's been around for about since 2018. Every year it's had 10 members come into the league, or to the Hall of Fame, not the league, but into the Hall of Fame. Last year was an exception, so last year they only had 5 go in there. With maybe for COVID or other reasons, or maybe it's finally starting to slow down. So you can find all of that information on Legends Never Die at Legends Never Die Collection. So you should be able to see that on the screen now if I've done all of this correctly. It seems to be more of a measure of respect in some ways, instead of how we would traditionally think about Hall of Fame stature, right? So when we think about Hall of Fame, we think about the greatest ever, and this is kind of a combination, I would say, a measure of respect for your card collection, as well as a measure of respect for your following and what you're producing. And and this is just kind of what I'm seeing right now. It it does seem to get a large amount of hype, and so I think those things are good for us as hobbyists as we're trying to share different things we're learning, different things we're getting to know our cards, the things that excite us. So for sports cards, I think it's a good thing. Most of what I've seen so far have been people who enjoy vintage cards, which I enjoy as well. I have, I think so far I've shown mostly vintage, but as time goes on, I'm just kind of working my way through some of these cards. So you'll see more modern cards as we go along. Um, so so I think there might be a certain type of person that goes into the YouTube Sports Card Hall of Fame based off of just who you know and who you're sharing, or maybe they're looking at monetary values or something. I'm not 100% sure on all the criteria. There's certain types I don't see in there that as a newbie, honestly, I thought I would see. So I didn't see Scotty B cards, you know, and you can see on all these inductees, you don't see Scotty B cards anywhere, right? So you don't see Sports Card Dad on there as well, and he might be pretty close to the cutoff. So maybe he doesn't have the time, but those would be two names that I would expect to see. They're very influential. So those are my other, those are notables on my list, right? So baseball card collector, he has a lot of really good content. He's very excited about it. Kind of the knock on him, if you want to find a knock, is he's a Rangers fan. Astros, go Astros. Hopefully that one doesn't come back to bite me. But listen, hey, in all fairness, Ranger fans and Astro fans have not liked each other since I can remember. So this is when the Astros were in the National League and the Rangers were in the American League, they didn't like each other. And then they put them in the same league, and now they really don't like each other. The only time Astros and Rangers fans ever liked each other, or at least everybody was on board, was there was some guy. What was his name? Nolan Ryan, and that's really the only time there's been, I think, a lot of camaraderie between the two camps in Texas. And then when they put us in the same division, I think it was meant to cause friction between Texas brethren in the state. And I'm no longer in the state of Texas, but I still, the Astros are my team. The Astros were my dad's team. My dad went to the first game ever in the Astrodome. He went and cheered for the Houston Colt 45s back in the day. So we're just Astros people from my family, and lots of my neighbors growing up. We kind of grew up between the two camps, so we had some Ranger fans in there as well, and so we were always kind of jibber jabbering back and forth. But it's those things are good. But baseball collector, he is a Rangers fan. And he hates the Astros, which is fine too. But we had Nolan Ryan for that moment that bound us together. And the other one is the Mangini collection. And if you haven't watched him, I'm going to recommend it. I'm going to recommend it for one specific reason, and that's of the date of this posting. There's something on that page. Well, there's lots of things on that page you need to see. But one thing I found quite interesting was a post he had, maybe yesterday, I think it was. And it was a new card that he had gotten from Fleischmann's Bakery Cards. These were pre-war cards, so pre-World War II cards that were being made. And something I had never seen before. He has a whole bunch of stuff I've never seen before. And I've learned a lot more about the hobby from him, which is, again, why I think these things like Sports Card Hall of Fame is good overall, because it creates interest and generates conversation. But the cards were printed both from the Fleischmann Bakery there in New York City, as well as the Ferguson Bakery, which was located out of Boston. So check those out. And yeah, interested to find out. I know some people are happy that Rolen made it. Some people say it's a robbery to everybody else. Honestly, I think if he hadn't gotten in this year, it speaks poorly to the what is it, the sports writers, for getting into the Hall of Fame. He should have been there. But thank you guys for watching, fellas, and we'll talk to you soon. Hope everybody stays safe. There's some weather coming in. So from me to you guys, stay safe out here.